Can you raise your hands if you have heard of connected and self-driving vehicles, aka driverless cars, aka connected and autonomous vehicles, CAVs? Okay, great. I kind of expected that. Now, keep your hands up, we'll put them back up, if you have seen one of these in person. Okay. Keep your hand up if you've ridden in one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that went pretty much like I expected, which is great, because it would have been really awkward if you've all put your hands up. So we're talking about a technology that actually is still relatively young. If I repeated what I just did for electric vehicles, I'm pretty sure I'll have a lot more than 4 hands at the end of that. So, you know, we're dealing with a tech that's still in the development phase. But first, I'm from an organization called Zenzic. It's probably good to introduce you guys to, you know, what Zenzic is. So Zenzic was created at the back end of 2017. It's part government funded and part industry funded. And our remit is to take industry, academia, and government, bring them together and build the testing infrastructure for connected and automated mobility technologies. For the rest of the talk, I'm just going to abbreviate that to CAM, because that's a real mouthful to keep saying. So how do we do that? Well, we are the facilitators of Testbed UK. Testbed UK is a number of testing facilities. There are 5 physical locations or physical test beds in Testbed UK and 1 data exchange. And together they build a cohesive ecosystem of testing infrastructure, which serve a number of different and hopefully comprehensive capabilities, from testing on rural roads to testing in controlled environments such as Millbrook Proving Ground or Myra Proving Ground, to real-life roads in the MFM, Midlands Future Mobility Test Bed, as well as SMLL, which is in Greenwich. And together, it forms the entity called Testbed UK, which is supposed to be, and pretty much is, a comprehensive testing environment for connected and automated mobility. And our remit and Zenzic is to make sure that Testbed UK is built, make sure it is relevant, and make sure the UK is the #1 place in the world to go to, and essentially accelerate the development of this technology. So a lot of talk about future. Let me take you to the past. Really interesting thing about this photo is it is actually, that little baby at the front is actually the grandfather of one of my colleagues. So this is a family photo from the Zenzic family. But really I wanted to put it up here just to illustrate to you guys that actually we've gone through quite profound changes when it comes to personal mobility. This photo is about 110 years old, right around the time where cars took over from the horse and carriage as the #1 means of personal transport. And I think you agree, we've also come a long way in the vehicles themselves. We no longer use babies as crumple zones. Think about the merits of that. I don't know, that's up to you guys. But you know, the vehicles themselves are a lot safer. And if we start to think about why we would want to have self-driving vehicles on our roads, well, #1 is safety. That when we think about the benefits that we could have, absolute #1 paramount is safety. And why is that important? Well, we've actually seen tremendous strides in road safety benefits and improvements over the last 40 years or so, you know, things like the mandatory seat belts, even technologies such as anti-lock braking. But in the recent years, probably over the last 5 years or so, we're actually seeing a plateauing in the number of fatalities on our nation's roads. They're hovering around about 1,700, 1,800 deaths on our roads every year. That equates to roughly an average of 5 people dying on our roads every single day. Pretty sobering stuff, to be honest with you. When you add in the fact that actually human error is present in 86% of personal injury collisions, there is an argument for huge safety benefits from the introduction of increasingly automated vehicles. And people have tried to put a number to that. And if we look at the SMMT data, we can save thousands of lives, almost 4,000 lives, by 2030 with the introduction of this type of technology. Not to mention the almost 50,000 severe collisions being prevented. And that's, life-saving, and, those type of collisions are life-changing. And if we can prevent them, that's a huge, huge incentive. Of course, there are other benefits to connected and automated mobility. We have productivity, access to transport, and the efficiency of our road network. Now, we actually spend over 200 hours a year, almost said a day there, guys, which would be crazy. We spend over 200 hours on average driving a car every year. And a lot of people say, hey, yeah, that's great. If we have self-driving vehicles, we can use that time to, do more work, which, quite frankly, if you're like me, that sounds like a terrible idea. But actually, if we can give back people some of that time, they can do other things, maybe some administrative things in their life, or perhaps even just chill out, because mental health is important too. So that's kind of the productivity argument for CAM. But we also have a huge potential benefit to people who have disabilities. Half of the disabled people in the UK are actually mobility impaired, and that amounts to a number of millions of people in this country. And with an aging population, that number is only expected to rise. So if we can increase their access to transport, it will make a huge difference in their lives and our future lives. And of course, the other argument that's often said is that connected and automated vehicles will help improve the efficiency of our road network. And in the last decade alone, we've seen almost a 10% rise in traffic on our roads, which is actually quite surprising given the kind of economic difficulties, let's say, that we have gone through over the last 10 years. But we're still seeing lots of people on the road, lots of injuries on the road. Now, if we take the safety benefits and we take these type of benefits together, of course, there's an economic incentive to CAM and the development of CAM. The benefits themselves obviously give some sort of economic saving. But if you take the benefits themselves and also take the idea that we're going to be the leaders at some of this technology, we're estimated to have almost over 50 billion pounds worth of value add and benefits to our economy by 2035, which equates to an additional 20,000 new automotive jobs. Now, that also, there'll be countless number of other jobs in other sectors that people haven't even thought of at this moment in time. So we're seeing a lot of arguments for the benefits of connected and automated mobility. And quite frankly, a lot of them probably do stand up to criticism and kind of scrutiny. There definitely are definite benefits to the technology. But we're also seeing a number of different organizations and a number of different sectors trying to get into this pie, as it were. And we have the traditional automotive industry, we have technology industry, but we have other sectors, gaming, for example, and other players that are coming on into this sphere, wanting a piece of that pie. Which leads us to the UK Connected and Automated Mobility Roadmap to 2030. Now, at Zenzic, we recognized that to achieve the benefits that we've talked about and people keep talking about, there needs to be some sort of coordination in where we're going. We can't have all these players if they're all working towards different means. And which is why earlier this year in September, we launched the UK Connected CAM Roadmap to 2030, which sets out all the things that needs to be done between now and 2030 to achieve some of these benefits. So what is the roadmap? Well, the roadmap itself is a tool for decision makers, whether that be businesses or policymakers. It does this by taking a collaborative view and a collaborative approach to where we're going in the industry, which helps to mitigate the risk because we're all heading in the same direction, and that's risks posed to government, that's risks posed to consumers, and that's risks posed to businesses. And it allows people to start generating insights of where we are going as an industry and where we might be going as a society. And it does that all under a shared vision, which I'll come on to a little bit later. And as I mentioned, who is the roadmap for? Well, it's for businesses, so that they can start making decisions, they can understand where they fit in, and that's for any type of business that is remotely related to connected and automated mobility. Consumers, in terms of what will people be getting and what can they expect to see coming onto market in the next 11 years or so, 10 and a bit really. And government, both local and regional and national, what do they need to consider and what legislation changes do we need to consider and make happen so we can actually get to these benefits? So before I show you a bit more about the roadmap, it's probably quite interesting to see how the roadmap was created. And, you know, I keep saying it was a collaborative approach, and I keep saying that it was a cross-industry, cross-sector collaboration. Well, actually it was, because over 150 different organizations were consulted in the development of this roadmap. It truly is a shared vision of the future, which what that relates to is over 250 individual people from these organizations, and we have almost 500 individual milestones, and so individual pieces of data created through this process. And all the relationships and all the interdependencies are mapped out, which actually equates to just under 600 individual relationships. Now, I'll show you a picture of what that looks like in a minute. As you can imagine, it's a complicated web. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not just the automotive industry or, you know, a few people from the technology industry that have been involved. It's a cross-ecosystem, cross-industry, cross-sector collaboration ranging from individuals such as transport policy charities to telecoms to highways authorities. It is as much as a shared vision that we can possibly curate. CIHT were also involved. So the question you guys might be thinking to yourself, well, was that really necessary? Do we really need to go out and talk to these many people? And, you know, isn't this all going to happen on its own accord just by itself? Well, yeah, it is. But if you take all the tasks that need to be done to get to that benefit or get to a vision of the future, and I will come on to what that vision is in a second, but if you take all the tasks that are identified through that process, and you strip out the collaboration effect, and you kind of lay them end by end, almost like a big Gantt chart. Well, actually, that takes you to an end date of 2079, which is, you know, quite a bit way off that 2030 goal that we set ourselves. So the only way, and I do stress the word only there, the only way that we can actually achieve the benefits, and the benefits in a timescale that people want, is through collaboration. And this is just to give you a flavor of the types of organization that we've been involved with. And, you know, I won't dwell on this particularly long, but you can see quite a range of organizations there, some of which, hopefully, you'll recognize. So what is this vision? I keep mentioning it. What is the goal that we're aiming for? Well, we took the Department for Transport's principles for their future mobility, and we took the Center for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles kind of key principles and priorities for their future, and we merged them together, adding an industry flavor to come up with this vision statement. I'm not going to read the vision statement out verbatim, but essentially what it says is we need safer, secure roads. We need to make sure that the UK are creators and not takers, because ultimately we'll have less benefits to this country if we're only adopting what Uber makes or what Google makes. But we're also generating, you know, next generation services, and there will be vehicles and services of this type of technology on our roads in 2030 that people can actually use. So that's what the roadmap aims to achieve. What does the roadmap actually look like? This is the simple answer. So the roadmap itself is split into 4 key themes. which have a number of sub-streams. And the key themes are society and people, vehicles, infrastructure, and services. So across all those 4 themes, we get a good understanding of all the things that need to be done to get to 2030 and to realize those benefits that we've talked about. Now, this is actually the highest level view. There are some leaflets outside that you can take on your way out, which is a reflection of this. But this is the absolute highest level view that we have, where you can see just the major milestones and major things that need to be done between now and 2030. There's a whole lot more detail and information sitting underneath that. And that looks like something like this. So this is just one stream, so it's a sub-theme, which is all to do about vehicle approvals. As you can see, there's quite a lot going on there. There's a lot of milestones, there's lots of things that need to happen, and there's a lot of interdependencies and things relying on other things to happen before they can happen themselves. And I appreciate that that's probably quite confusing to look at and go, okay, what am I supposed to take out of that? And if we look at a simplified version of these type of threads, we begin to understand that you can draw out and start to paint a picture for your own organization with the roadmap and start to understand where you sit in the world of CAM, in the future world of CAM. And you can start to understand, okay, so there's something on the left here, I think AF01, which I know off by heart clearly because I've probably wrote that one. But it's a milestone that talks about developing validation methods for AI and machine learning. And we can actually see there's a relationship between that and then the use of AI and machine learning for the software when they go onto the roads. Clearly, one has to happen before the other because we need to make sure that that AI or that machine learning algorithms are safe to be on our roads. So that's a simplified example of types of enabling from early milestones to later milestones. So as I said, I've just thrown quite a lot of information at you guys and kind of a web of milestones. You're probably thinking to yourself, okay, that's kind of interesting, but how do I actually use it? And how does my organization fit into this picture? Because I don't see where, the exact thing that my company does in those streams and themes, which is a very good thought to have, guys, which is where the concept of golden threads come in. Now, golden threads is a way to find your own route through the roadmap. And it does that by providing a bespoke view for your own meaningful path. So it filters out, essentially, all the meaningless stuff for your organization, and it starts to put together what steps and what things need to happen to help your organization. And as we saw earlier, it's all driven by this interdependency web. And what it does is it starts to bring aspects from across the different streams and themes, starts building them together so that your own personal story, whether it's topic-based, for example, safety, or if it's some sort of, let's say you're an SME and you're developing some sort of service widget that will come onto the market in 2027, well, actually, you can start to look at all the types of infrastructure requirements, vehicle requirements, and legislation, all before that has to happen before your widget or your application or your particular business model becomes viable. And if you understand what types of things need to happen before your product can be viable, well, then you can start having the conversations with the relevant people much earlier on, thus helping to accelerate the development of this technology. So there are 6 golden threads on different topics in the roadmap report, which is available on our website, free to use. Also on our website, there is the overarching overview view, and also the interactive version where you can delve deeper into the different milestones and start saying, oh, what does this mean and where does my organization fit in? And as part of the development of our roadmap, we are holding a number of topic-based and organization-based workshops where we can provide the bespoke view to different organizations and really find their path through the roadmap. So that's quite a lot of information that I've thrown at you guys. And what is it that I want for you guys to take from this presentation? Well, we started with the idea, actually, that technology is still in the future, and not many of us in the room had experienced it. But as you can see, we're moving towards a period of rapid change extremely quickly, within a decade. So my challenge to you guys, and my last thought that I want to leave with you guys, is as the next generation of transport professionals, what is your role going to be in this transition, and what part are you going to play in building and getting to this future?